everyone, and welcome back to this brand new section called Factorization. Now in this lesson we are going to revise a lot of things that you have learned in grade 9, and later on in the lesson we are going to look at a brand new little thing that comes into the common factor for you in grade 10. So here we go. When you need to factorize, you always try to do it in this order. So it's so important to remember this order. You always start with check for a common factor first, okay? Then if you can't, you go and try and see if you can do the difference between two squares, then the trinomial, then grouping, and later on the sum or difference between two cubes. Now these are also two new factorization lessons that you will get later on, but for now let's just look at the common factor. So this is the step number 1. So always when we get an example, I'm going to check for a common factor first. Now the common factor. Here are my steps. Start with the base numbers, then the letters, then the brackets if there are any, okay? And find the HCF for all the terms. Okay, very important. So we want to separate our terms and we want to find the highest common factor that can fit into this term as well as that term. The same here, we separate our terms, we find the highest common factor for this term and for that one. Then we write the highest common factor and we open up brackets. Okay, what goes into the brackets? We divide each original term, so the original term gets divided with the highest common factor to see what remains, and we write that in the brackets. Okay, so let's see how these steps work by applying them to these examples. So here I want to factorize the following. And we always start with our base numbers, 18 and 3. Now, what's the highest common factor that can go into 18 and 3? It will be a 3, right? Yes. And then we go over to our letters. And there's a A, there's a A. Okay, there's 4 A's here, there's 1 A. How many A's do they have in common? Only 1 A, right? Because I can take an A there and I can take 1 A there. If I take 4 A's there, I cannot take 4 there. So they've got 1 A in common. So I'm going to take out the A, and then I go to the next letter. There's a B, there's a B. What's the most B's they have in common? It will be B to the power of 2. So we take out the B to the power of 2. So this is called my highest common factor. Now, what did I say here? Write the highest common factor. There I did write it, and open up brackets. Okay, so let's open up brackets. I like to open these big ones because sometimes when we work with brackets, these big ones make it a bit easier. So now, what do? Divide each original term. So that's the original term. I'm going to divide it with the highest common factor. So that divided by this gives me what I must write here. So 18 divided by 3, that gives me 6. And then with the letters, it's quite easy. There were 4 A's. I divide with this A. And remember, we just subtract the exponents when we divide with letters, right? So there were 4 A's. I took away 1. How many A's remain? 3. And then there were 6 B's. I divide by 2 B's. How many B's remain? 4 B's. Because we write the B and we minus the exponents when we divide, right? So that's 4. And then basically the minus with a positive gives me the minus. And then basically all of that is here. So 3AB squared divided by 3AB squared doesn't give me 0. It gives me 1. And I close the bracket. And there it is. That is how we factorize that first one. Quite easy, isn't it? Now, why don't we multiply again? Because then we're just working in reverse. Because the reverse for the common factor is the distributive law. So if I multiply that, I'll just get the original 2 again. So that is a way for you to test if you factorize correctly. Nice little tip, isn't it? Okay, now, how about B? This one looks a bit more intimidating because there's also brackets. Now, how many terms do we have? We have 2 terms. So, what is the highest common factor that can go into this term as well as in that one? We start with the base numbers, 4 and 3. Is there a highest common factor for 4 and 3 except the 1? No, there's not. Then we go to the letters. There's a A, there's a B. Is there a common factor between the A and the B? No, they're different letters. Then the brackets, if there are any, well, there's brackets and there's brackets. And look, these brackets are exactly the same as those. So that and that is the same. So they are in common. So that is a highest common factor, okay? How many brackets can I take here? 1. How many can I take here? Only 1. So let's take that out. So the highest common factor between these two terms is just the brackets, because the brackets are exactly the same. So let's take it out. So n plus m, that's the only highest common factor. And step 2 says write the highest common factor and open up brackets. So after this one, I'm going to open up brackets. There we go. Then we take the original term and divide it with the HCF. So that's the original one divided with this. Now if I take 4a and then the brackets n plus m, and I divide it by the bracket n plus m, only the 4a will remain, right? Because you know that if we take that and we divide it with this, the brackets will cancel and we only have 4a left. So there we go, 4a. And then we take the next term, which is minus 3b n plus m in brackets. The minus divided by a positive, so it will stay a minus. And then if we take 3b n plus m divided by n plus m, that one will cancel and we will only have 3b left. There we go, and close the brackets. And we are done, because in this bracket I cannot do anything. I cannot take 4a minus 3b, they're not the same thing. And I cannot plus a n with a m, because they're not the same thing. And that is all there is to it. Let's go try another example. Now this example is a bit more different than the previous ones. Now again we have two terms, so let's separate our terms, and then what is in this term that's also in that term? We want the highest common factor. Well, there's brackets that's exactly the same, but there's 3 of them and 2 of them. So what's the most brackets I can take from these two terms? Okay, I can only take 2 here and I can take 2 there, because if there's 3, I definitely can take 2. And how many will remain? 1, right? And I can take the 2 on this side. So the highest common factor here is a minus 3 in brackets to the power of 2. Okay, because it's the most brackets I can take from both these terms. Now, let's write it down. So I'm going to take a minus 3 to the power of 2, and that's going to be my highest common factor. You agree with me? Yes? Okay, great. Then I open up the big brackets, because that's my highest common factor, and my step said write the highest common factor and open up brackets. The next step says take the original term and divide it with this one. Now if I have 3 of those and I divide it with 2 of those, remember, if we divide with the same thing and they have exponents, we simply minus the exponents, right? So there's 3 brackets minus 2 of those brackets. How many of the brackets remain? Only 1 of them, right? Okay, so to the power of 1. You don't have to write that 1, I'm just showing you. And then minus divided by a plus is a minus. And then there were 2 of them divided by exactly 2 of them. So what remains? A 1, right? And let's close the bracket. Because if we have the same thing divided by the same thing, we can't get a 0, we always get 1. And now, that is why I like these big brackets, because we never want to end up with these smaller brackets in the big ones. So I can go one step further than the previous line. So here I go, and then inside these brackets, what is outside and against this bracket? A positive 1, right? So we can multiply it in, and I'll show you that in blue. So we can basically multiply that in, because in these brackets we have 2 terms. We can separate it there if we wanted to, but we can't really. The whole sum is 1 term, but look, inside this bracket there's 2, right? So I can get rid of these brackets with the distributive law, and then I will have a minus 3, because a positive 1 times a is a positive 1 times minus 3 is minus 3, and what is still left? A minus 1. And now I'm almost done, because that leads to a minus 3 to the power of 2, and then in the brackets we have a minus 4. And I am done, because minus 3 minus 1 is minus 4. Okay, great. So that is all there is to it for the common factor. And now we go over to something new. The common factor with brackets that have different signs. Okay, so you are going to see an example and you are going to see, well, we are looking for the same things in this term and in this term, but there aren't any because this bracket is not the same as that one. Why not? There's 2m, there's 2m, but look, it's a positive, this one is negative. This is a minus 3n, that's a positive 3n. So they are not the same, but hang on, listen to this. When there are brackets that are only different because of both the signs, do you agree that they are only different because the signs for them are different, right? Then we can change the signs so that the brackets are exactly the same by multiplying with minus 1 for the term we want to change. So I can change this term or this term, okay? But here I put in brackets usually not the first term. So I'm not going to change this one, I'm going to change the second one. And here, remember, when we do this, the signs inside the bracket will change as well as the sign on the outside. Okay, so here we go. Let me see what we can do here. So we are looking at this. There is no common factor between this term and that term. Okay, there's 2 and a 3. I don't have a highest common factor between 2 and 3. There's a and a B. Well, they're not the same letter, so no common factor there. The brackets and that brackets, they're almost the same, but look, it's a minus 3n, a positive 3n, a minus 2m, a positive 2m. So the signs are different in this one. So we can change it by taking this term and multiplying it with a minus 1. I always just say multiply it with minus 1. It's the same. Some say divide it by minus 1. Others say take out a minus 1. But it's all the same. So just multiply with the minus 1. And what's going to happen? Here I said, remember when we do this, the signs inside the bracket will change as well as the sign on the outside. So now this sign is going to change. That sign is going to change and the sign on the outside. So this becomes the following. We have 2a, 3n minus 2m, and then we change this sign to a minus. So it becomes minus 3b, and then minus 2m plus 3n, and we close the bracket. Now, we still have our two terms, but look, through positive 3n, minus 2m, minus 2m. Now the brackets are exactly the same, and it doesn't matter if they are swapped around. See, that's 3n first, that's plus 3n second, because if I take this bracket, and I'll quickly show you here on the right, it is exactly the same. If I have minus 2m plus 3n, it's the same as this. It's the same as 3n minus 2m. When we swap terms around, we swap them with their signs. Okay, so now I have a common factor because there's brackets that's the same, and I'm going to take out the one that looks nice, this first one, because that has a minus at the front, it always looks ugly to me. And then I have the highest common factor. After taking out the one that's in common, I open up the box, and then I take this first original term divided by the 3n minus 2m. And what is left? Just the 2a, right? So now we have 2a, and then we take this one and we divide it with this, because that is the term now, and that bracket we took it out. So minus 3b, and in brackets that one divided by this will end up to be minus 3b, and we close the box and we are done. So that is all there is to it. So what do you have to remember? don't be despaired if you get a sum where you have to factorize. The brackets are not the same because of their signs. You can change the signs by multiplying with -1. The signs on the inside will change and the sign on the outside, and then you have a highest common factor. And in this case, the brackets, we take out the brackets, we take that term divided by the highest common factor, 2a is left. We take that term divided by the highest common factor. Because it's exactly the same brackets, they will cancel and the -3b will be left. And that is all there is to it. Now it's time for you to try. Now you know how it works. Here are 3 examples. Give them a go. And remember, you have to factorize them. So once you are ready, resume the video and see if you are correct. Okay, here I go. Now here we have 2 terms. So we want to factorize. So I am looking for something in common, because with factorization we always start with the common factor. So there is a bracket a minus b. There is a minus b. Okay, so the brackets are in common. So what's the most brackets I can take from both terms? That's 1. That's a 2. So I can take 1 bracket from each term, right? So let's just write that down. So the highest common factor here is one of these brackets, and then open up the box. Then we take this term and we divide it with this bracket. Because we have 2 divided by 1, there will be 1 left. So this will be a minus b, and then we have that term divided by the highest common factor, minus divided by a positive, the minus will stay there. And then if I have 3a minus b divided by the a minus b, only the 3 will be left. And there we go. And then because we have brackets inside the big ones, we want to get rid of them with the multiplication. So always leave the highest common factor. We don't touch it again, we just keep writing it down. But inside the big brackets, we can take the distributive law and we can multiply it in, right? So we multiply the one with the a and the one with the minus b, and then we will end up with a minus b minus 3, and we are done. Great. Now example 2. Here are 3 terms, 1, 2 and 3. So let me separate them quickly. And we know we have to factorize. So we are looking for the, or we're starting with the common factor. So we're looking for the highest common factor between this term, and that term. And again, if you followed the rules earlier on in the lesson, we start with the base number. So what's the highest common factor between 16, 8 and 36? And it will be a 4, okay? So there we go. And then we go to the letters, that is n to the power of 4, n to the power of 3, n to the power of 2. So the most n's I can take from each one is n to the power of 2. So let's take that out. Good. Then there's a m, there's a m, there's a m. What's the most m's I can take? Because there's a m in all the terms, so it is in common. So we can take a m to the power of 3. Okay, wonderful. Let's open up the box. And then, here we go. How about we take this term and we divide it with the highest common factor. So 16 n to the power of 4, m to the power of 8 divided by this. It will give me 4 n to the power of 2, m to the power of 5. Then again, the second term divided by the highest common factor. So don't forget about the signs. Minus divided by a plus is a minus. And I'll do this one slowly. 8 divided by 4 is a 2. And then we have n to the power of 3 divided by n to the power of 2. It will just be a n. And then m to the power of 7 divided by m to the power of 3. It will be m to the power of 4. Because when we divide with the same letters, we simply write the letter minus the exponents, right? And this last one, positive and a positive, don't forget about the signs, is positive. 36 divided by 4 is a 9. And then basically n to the power of 2 divided by n to the power of 2 is 1. And m to the power of 3 divided by m to the power of 3 is 1. And 9 times 1 times 1 is a 9, right? Okay, or the way I like to say it, there was n to the power of 2, I took them away, so they're not left there. Okay, so there we go. And then we are basically done because we took out the highest common factor and that is what is left, and I cannot add or subtract anything in here. Always make sure, and then we're basically done. Great. How about the third example? Now here we have two terms, there we go, and what is in common? 5 and 4, there's no highest common factor. A and B, they're not the same letters, they're not in common, and the brackets are also not in common. But hang on, they can be made to become in common because only the signs are different, right? That's a positive n, a negative n, a -3, a positive 3. So only the signs for both these are different from the signs of both of those. So what did we learn? We can simply go and we can multiply with a -1. So it's going to change that sign, it's going to change this sign, and it's going to change that sign. So let's do that quickly. So 5a n minus 3, and then that becomes a plus 4b and a minus 3 and a plus n. Now look, positive n, -3, -3, and we still have our two terms. The brackets are exactly the same, so that is my common factor. So n minus 3, I always take out the more beautiful one. That one looks neat. I don't like the minus at the front on the inside. And then I open up the box that I always do after writing the common factor. We take that term divided by this, so those two will cancel. Only the 5a is left, and then plus, and then if we take this one divided by the common factor, again the brackets will change because they are the same. It doesn't matter if they are swapped around there, they swapped around with their signs, right? So we cancel those and we have left a 4b, and then we are done. So great. And that is all there is to it. So I hope you're with me in this lesson. Keep working through it, and remember the common factor is very important. And remember, we learned a new trick. If you can find the common factor because of the brackets, just look for the signs and see. If the signs are only different, we have a new trick. We can multiply with a -1. See you in the next lesson. Bye. This is your host Richard T, and thank you for joining us. Please visit our website mathsa.co.za for free guided exam tutorials.